Welcome aboard the Seatbelt Sign podcast. We've been cleared for takeoff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Sasha, and we are going to be talking about her adventures as a helicopter nurse, air ambulance, medevac. What is the actual title? I sound so silly. I just call you helicopter nurse to everybody I meet.
Oh, it's okay. Well, so there are nurses, but I am a paramedic.
Right.
So you can be one of three things. So you can be a pilot, a nurse, or a paramedic.
Okay, awesome. Really quickly for the layman out there, because I'm dumb and I didn't know this, there's a difference between a paramedic and an EMT. And I mistakenly introduced my friend who's a paramedic as an EMT one day because I didn't know there was a difference. And he very quickly stopped me. We were talking to another doctor, an anesthesiologist, and he goes, I'm not an EMT, I'm a paramedic. So you want to set the stage straight for everybody real quick, Sasha?
Yeah, so that would be like if you introduced a airline pilot as a private pilot. That is equivalent to that.
Big difference, huh?
Yeah, big difference.
Okay, I didn't know.
So,
but essentially, a paramedic is better than EMT. You can do a lot more stuff, right? A lot more qualifications.
Yeah, so I got my EMT because I thought that EMTs do what paramedics do. And it is a good foundation, but I quickly realized that it was not what paramedics do. So then I had to go back and get my paramedic. There's a lot more you do. So we are like advanced level care. EMTs typically provide basic level care. They can give some medications, but they're all oral medications, or they can do some intramuscular, but really nothing super invasive. So once you get to being a paramedic, that is where you get into like cardiac stuff, doing IVs, a lot more advanced level stuff. So that was appealing.
Really saving lives.
You can say that.
All right. So what pushed you to get into nursing, healthcare, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I actually went to school for education. And then when I was in college, I took care of a lady who was quadriplegic. So I was a home care worker. And sometimes she'd have some medical issues. And I got to kind of know and learn what EMS does, and I got really interested in it. And I just thought paramedics were cool. I know that's really lame, but I just thought they were the coolest people ever. And I went to a community college for it, and it was actually a really short degree than you might actually imagine. It takes about a year.
Quick disclaimer, everybody. So in this episode, we have a few audio difficulties as well as our dogs are playing in the background, and they were so cute that I didn't want to stop. So sometimes you might hear the pitter patter of them on the wood floor. If you can, just disregard.
So you do about 500 clinical hours on an ambulance and in the hospital to understand patient care. You don't always come out with a degree, so I am not a degree paramedic. You can come out with just a certification. Or you can go to a actual college and get a full degree if you want to. So Western Carolina is a popular one to get an actual degree in EMS.
No way. That's where I went to school.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
They have a
I
big
actually
EMS
did take
program.
a ride in their ambulance, and surprised because nothing was in it. It was just a free taxi to get you to the hospital because I had busted my face on my mountain bike. And
that'll do it.
Yeah, the girl was in one of my classes, and I was looking around, and all the drawers were empty. And I'm like, "Is there anything in there?" And she's like, "We got Band-Aids and smelling salts." This was also a decade ago, so it's probably a lot better now. Shout out, go Catamounts.
Well, that actually might be the difference of what you're talking about. That might have been just an EMT level truck, so then they wouldn't have
likely
much on it. But if it's a paramedic level, that's where you have all the cool stuff.
We're gonna pause for 2 seconds. Boogie! Boogie! What are you doing up there?
It's okay.
Hey!
These guys.
Boogie.
I have to start this question over.
Boogie, go play. Okay, we're back.
We're back.
Yeah. So you were saying, so you're working 911.
Yeah, so I think your question was, what do I do
you said
now?
that 3 years. Yeah, so 3 years. So now let's jump forward. So you're at the 3-year mark. You've been working 911 this whole time?
So I worked 911 for 3 years because that is the minimum to get into air medical EMS. And one time when I was a 911 paramedic, I had to fly out a patient, and these paramedics landed on scene it might have been a paramedic and a nurse, I'm not sure, but they got in the back of the ambulance, and one dude had his helmet on and night vision goggles on, and I just thought that was the coolest thing.
You guys do look super cool with those badass helmets and everything. That's so neat. And your jumpsuits and everything.
It's cool. And I was enamored. I was like, I want to be that superhero.
Okay,
and
cool.
I know it's more than that, but that was my first thought when I saw him. Like, that's what I'm going to do. So
yeah, that's what I was curious about. So it just happened to be one day, just a guy showed up out of the helicopter, hopped in the ambulance with you, and you were like, dang, that's what I want.
Which now, in retrospect, that I do this, I have no idea why he got in the back of the ambulance with his helmet and NVGs on, because we take off our helmets before we get into the ambulance, and we definitely take the night vision goggles off because they are really, really expensive, number one. They're heavily regulated. They're like 20 grand a piece.
Yikes.
So every time we go into work, we have to sign them out. And anyways, they're a whole thing. So usually before we actually get out of the helicopter, we take them off and we put them back in the case. So all we have on our helmets is the mount. And then when we get in the ambulance, we take our helmet off. So in retrospect, I have no idea why that guy had his helmet on and NVGs, but that's why I was like, wow, that's cool. I'm going to be you.
It was divine intervention, dude. It was meant to be. He hopped in there because little did he know he was making a new helicopter helicopter paramedic.
It was.
Okay, cool. So now you're like, you go home the next day and you're like, I got to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
So let's start from there.
Honestly, I think it probably was the next day because that's how I approach everything. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do this. But really, it was more than that. I wanted to learn critical care. So what I technically am is a critical care paramedic. And we not only are doing what paramedics do, but at a much higher level. So an even higher scope of practice. And what I did to first get into it was I shadowed air medical program, and it was so amazing. I didn't know how I would feel on the helicopter, but the first time we took off, I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. And then I got to learn about exactly what they do, and I realized like that level of thinking, that level of critical care, that level of intervention that you can provide for patients is so amazing, incredible to be able to deliver that care to people out in the streets or in the hospital.
Let's talk about, they give you the job offer. Now you're going into training to work on the helicopter. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it took a long time to actually get to work rotor wing. It was really competitive when I first got into it. I've been doing that for almost 8 years now, and I first had to start doing ground critical care. Yeah, so you're doing whatever the hospital was doing, you're just continuing that care. Or sometimes you're making some interventions. If you notice, like you get to the patient bedside and you're like, wow, this patient is not what they said. You actually have the ability to make adjustments to the patient's medication or make adjustments to their ventilator, whatever it is that they need to optimize them for transport. You actually do that, which is really neat because it's kind of functioning at almost like a mid-level provider. We're not mid-levels, but we function with under protocols, and we get to make these kind of medical decisions. And it's amazing to be able to provide that care and optimize patients and make sure that they're doing well for transport.
Now it's day one and your first day on the helicopter. Okay.
Yeah, so we finally made it after doing ground transport for a long time. Yeah, I got on.
Well, that's awesome because, everything in the aviation industry is all about putting in your dues.
Yeah.
So makes sense that in your industry it would be the same way. I mean, doctors, they go to school for like 100 years until they're finally like established and making the big bucks. So it makes sense that you had to put in a lot of time and energy to get onto the helicopter.
Yeah.
So let's talk about day one on the helicopter. Like, did they give you some training like, hey, don't open the door this way or you might fall out, little things like that? Or did you learn that as you're being in the ground part? Like tell me all about just jumping into the helicopter, not knowing anything about it, to what you are today.
Well, what I learned is that once you get a flight suit, everyone always asks you if you're the pilot, and then you tell them that you're not the pilot, and they're extremely disappointed, and they don't even ask what you do. And then
that's pretty funny. Oh my gosh.
Sucks.
You tell them I'm more important than the pilot. I keep the people alive.
They don't care. They don't care. I'm like,
Honestly, being a pilot, essentially, it feels like driving a car after a while. So I think that's probably the easiest job. On y'all's machine, keeping the people alive that are bleeding out from gunshot wounds and whatnot. That's probably a lot harder.
oh man, you know what? That's what I tell my pilots too. I'm like, you guys are just glorified Uber drivers.
That's right. It's all it is.
No, they're amazing. Although their autopilot's really advanced and incredible. We have such state-of-the-art helicopters. It's amazing. So when you first get started and you first get that helmet and you first get to wear those NVGs, you have a lot of crew resource management training, which, as you guys all know as pilots,
huge for
very
pilots.
important.
Yep.
And we actually get the same type of training. They make sure that we know all of the emergency egress with the helicopter. Any emergency procedures of like pushing out the windows, what we do if we're going to have a hard impact, how to, if we need to actually get help on the radio, call in Mayday, other things like that. Some air medical programs actually teach their crews how to handle incapacitated pilot.
Oh, cool.
Which we do not train in that, the program I'm with, which is okay. There's some controversy whether if we're trained in that, how that would actually affect our thought process during an emergency. I kind of wish we were trained in it. Just some basics of like, hey, if we're getting close to an airport, or if your pilot's incapacitated, these are some buttons you can press, maybe to get you down low. Some of our pilots have off the record taught us kind of what to do.
That's
and
cool.
It mostly is just trying to get to the nearest airport, and then once we're at, we have an airport in sight, trying to lower the collective once we get to the point where the autopilot kicks off and trying to get it on the ground.
I see.
But
it's interesting that you said it could affect your decision making in the event of an emergency. I never would have thought of that, and it does make sense. But at the same time, you're like, hey, there's 4 other souls on board. We need to know how to put this thing on the ground and not blow it up.
Yeah. I think their thought is this: if the pilot went unresponsive and then all of a sudden they became alert and you've already messed up a bunch of stuff, what could happen? So I guess that's part of it. But
well, hey, there's a federal regulation that says in the event of emergency, you can do anything that you need to do. Just be ready to do a little bit of paperwork when you safely get back to the ground. So
does that mean I can just be signed off as a helicopter
whatever you
pilot?
need to do. If your guy kills over dead, you take those controls.
Actually, they all joke that we should just fix them as best as we can. And I can assure you that's exactly what I would try to do. Even if it would be weird and squirrely to try to get up into that seat to try to help them, that's 100% what I would do.
You know what? Another thought I never would have had. So I'm glad that you guys are trained well, and that makes the most sense, really.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, besides that, we train a lot in crew resource management, and then, of course, safety around the helicopter. Because sometimes we have to take other first responders with us to load a patient, and not all helicopters have that fenestrated tail. Mm-hmm. So we actually have an open tail rotor, and that can get really dangerous because actually the height of it is lower than you would think. And you could, if somebody's walking back there, you could chop a head off.
Oh, yeah. Anybody out there that wants to go see, there's a million videos on Reddit of people walking to a helicopter. You don't see the blade spinning because they spin so fast, and it cuts your head right off.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
We have to have extreme vigilance with it. We have to, if we're going to take somebody on the rotor with us, we have to signal to our pilot. We've got to snatch off any loose articles of clothing, whether they're like wearing a hat or, whatever else that might be loose. I've actually snatched a hat off of somebody's head before and forgot to give it back. And I was mid-flight and I was like, oh no, I have that dude's hat.
That's totally fine. You saved his life. I think you can buy a new hat.
Yeah. So when we get the crew resource management, but we have intensive training for all the scope of practice that we have. So for nurses to be a air medical nurse, you have to have a minimum of 3 to 5 years of ICU or ER nursing. And then for being a paramedic, you gotta have a minimum of 3 years of 911. So once I had that 3 years, I was like, I'm applying to jobs immediately.
That's awesome. And you're here now, and you are in the flight suit. It looks pretty cool.
I actually usually just get asked if I'm like out pumping gas at my car. Besides getting asked if I'm the pilot, I get asked if I'm an astronaut because our flight suits are blue. And I've been asked if I'm a mechanic.
A mechanic, I could totally see an astronaut here.
I got it twice in one day.
That's hilarious.
Astronaut.
I never would have thought. I would think Blue Angels before I thought anything else, but
I
mechanic
would
makes
prefer
sense
that.
too.
Nope.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's funny.
All right, so you've been trained on the helicopter. You're rocking and rolling. First of all, how does it feel just to like lift off in the helicopter? Pretty cool. It's way different scenery than being in an airplane.
Yeah, so
And landing on a hospital roof. It's got to be crazy.
Oh, not only that, we land. So if EMS calls us to a scene, we'll land wherever they want us to land at. But it's got to be the right size, the right slope, the right surroundings. So we're always looking for wires, of course. The slope is a big deal because if they land on too much of a slope, you could actually hit the tail rotor. And we got to make sure that the ground is the correct level of softness, because if we land in something that's too soft, we're going to have issues. But yeah, so I'm still a whacker. Whenever I see a helicopter, if I'm just like not on shift, I will like come running out of my house to go look at it because they're just amazing. They are just that glorious.
Every person in aviation that likes flying things, we all look to the sky. So it's totally normal.
Yeah, so when we take off, it is the most amazing thing, really. I've done it now. I've done rotor wing for 5 years, and it still hasn't gotten old. I love even seeing it, like my coworkers take off if I see them out in the wild. The sound of two engines starting on a helicopter is like,
oh yeah, the turbines. Yeah, it's super neat.
It's
super
so
cool.
good.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
your seatbelt sign sound for your podcast is pretty good, but I don't know.
Yeah, that turbine. It's
Start up
else.
of a helicopter.
So pushing that thought a little further, a lot of times you guys are going into the worst scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, you fly into there could be a thunderstorm, which caused a huge. Don't worry, that's just a debt collection.
Probably because I'm trying to learn how to fly. It's probably a debt collector.
Yeah, we've talked about this on previous episodes. If you do want to become a pilot, get ready to have a little bit of debt, and just turn those notifications off from those debt collection agencies. Yeah, they are notorious. They'll call you back and back and back. All right, so you're going into the worst situation possible. Sometimes it could be like a thunderstorm on a highway that caused a huge car wreck. It might be like cars on fire. You're going into like this dark environment with your night vision goggles on. Like, what is it like to know that you're going into literally a circle of hell, pull some dying people out, and then how does it feel to leave that area?
Yeah, so that is what we do. All jokes aside about the coolness with NVGs and a flight suit, that is the most amazing thing about our job, is being able to be that person when we arrive on scene. People look at you and are like, okay, now we have even more help. And people feel relieved to know that we are there to be able to not only transport them as fast as we can, because that's our primary thing, but also deliver even more care that 911 EMS ambulances cannot do. And, you know, be able to do the maximum intervention possible. At first it's taken a long time to get proficient at it. And I would just say now at 5 years, I'm proficient. And if you're ever like feeling like you're too comfortable at the job, that's the time to get out of it. So there's always a level of uneasiness going into mysterious scene calls we get called to. Sometimes we get called to like, gunshot wound to the whatever, and you don't have any further information. Especially kids shake me up since I am a mom. But I've learned how to deal with the nerves and know that I am well trained and that I can, we work together as a team. We have great crew resource management to be able to deliver the care these patients need. So.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine all the terrible things that you guys see, and that's just a regular day at work.
Yeah.
I've heard stories from you as well as other paramedics, like going into that thunderstorm, also going into a building that was completely on fire. There was a farm that was completely on fire, and the silo was like burning up, and it looked like a hurricane of fire. I mean, the gunshot wounds, and then I've heard some terrible stories about kids getting injured. That's obviously the worst.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it. So, how do you decompress after all that? Have you figured it out after all these years, or it's still tough? I mean,
honestly, I feel like the best way that we decompress is to talk to each other, because we're the only ones that can truly understand what we see, or, the care that we deliver, and process how we did on that call, process any feelings, because nobody really can understand except other people who are doing this job. I feel like, of course, it's good to have a therapist or somebody else to talk to, but really each other are our best people to talk to. And then you got to have your hobbies. You can't just be obsessed with this job, although it's amazing and so fun. You gotta disconnect and sometimes realize there's a life outside of it.
Yeah, and what you said there, talking to other people in the business is really kind of the only way for you to decompress, because you guys are the only ones that understand the job, because you're in it all day long. You're seeing all the crazy trauma. There's a great TV show that I started watching called SkyMed. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's a fun little series about the nurses and the pilots and all the love triangles and all the drama that goes on there. And I guess that's taken from real life. So let's get into that. Let's spill the tea. Obviously, you guys you're seeing death and destruction and craziness every day. So what does that do to, your emotions when you guys are all just decompressing and venting and stuff? I mean, is there a lot of love triangles in real life?
I'm not gonna say that at my current job there is, because people would probably come after me, but I have worked at other agencies where there's definitely been love triangles, and you know what, some of these love triangles work out, but sometimes they don't, and then that's kind of dramatic. You know what they say, don't shit where you eat. So
and we also don't kiss and tell, but we're anonymous on this podcast, so we can tell all about it.
It's a good recommendation. I've never partaken in these activities, but I have heard of people, finding a parking lot out, somewhere and putting sheets up in the ambulance and decompressing.
In the ambulance? Boy. That's fun. Hey, it's a room on wheels. That's perfect.
Yeah,
because in the show here, they're getting it on in the maintenance facility, sometimes in the helicopter, sometimes in the plane,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say that isn't something that I've heard happen at other places, not my current place of work, but yes.
So it's true. It really does happen in the real world. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, so anybody that wants to watch that show, go watch SkyMed. It's fun.
Well, unfortunately, they say that EMS stands for extramarital sex, which I hate that people say that. I'm like, come on, we're not all like that. What's that?
Some stereotypes are true.
Oh, man. Yeah, I've seen it.
Let's take a moment to hear from today's sponsor, Pretzels. When you're 30,000 feet up and hunger strikes, Pretzels are here to help. Are they exciting? No. Are they moist? Absolutely not. Are they expired? We aren't sure, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Pretzels. Not the snack you want, but it's the snack you get.
Okay, so what else I wanted to talk about was, have you ever had some crazy patients on board that later try to get your number, or they tried to slide into your DMs? Because that is a thing. Sometimes, you're like seeing the light, and then all of a sudden the attractive young nurse is like there over you, and they're like pulling you back down to earth. And, sometimes you fall in love with that paramedic that rescues you. So has that ever happened to you?
Oh, man. I have had patients want to hold my hand the entire time, and it's just like some old men,
Oh yeah,
they probably don't need their hand held, but here they are wanting to hold your hand or put their hand on your shoulder, and you're just like, oh God, okay. We've all made fun of each other for that before. Actually, that happened to my partner the other day. This old man wanted to rest his hand on her shoulder the whole flight. And I was behind the head of the stretcher just laughing the whole time.
That's
they
so
can't
funny.
hear us. They have headphones on,
Okay.
but they're not connected to the aircraft intercom. So
Okay.
they can't actually hear what we say,
Oh, that's great. That's so funny.
which is probably a good thing.
You guys are like the little Asian ladies at the nail salon. Nobody knows what they're saying in the background.
We always have to counsel patients. We're like, if you need something, just yell.
Really loud.
And we've gotten good at mouth reading.
So no one's ever tried to, slip their number into your pocket or nothing too crazy like that.
No, I mean, they'll give you compliments, but for what we do, usually they're really, really sick. So not typically. But when I worked 911, I had some skeezers where they're just trying to slide in those DMs.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, what is it like? Obviously, you're so desensitized to it, but for us lay people out there, like you got a guy who's got 3 bullet holes in him. How crazy is that? And have any of those stories gotten wild? Like, do you have sometimes just guys that have 3 bullets in them and they're just still trying to fight and they're acting crazy and
Oh my God, all
refusing
the
help?
time. I don't know anything about guns, to be honest with you. And I don't know what it is, but everyone shoots each other with 22s, whatever that means.
It's a small bullet.
Okay, yeah. So it is small
Yeah.
and it's so impressive. I don't know why it is, but where I work, there's a lot of GSW or gunshot wound patients. And it's always a 22 and it's always hard to actually see the bullet wound, but they can actually do some damage. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, these patients they'll be okay when you get in the back of the truck. So we get in the back of the ambulance when we're trying to take this patient from EMS and we do our assessment and they're doing fine. But sometimes when we get them in the aircraft, they start decompensating. So they start having significant blood loss. They just start crumping. They start getting unresponsive. Luckily, we carry everything to take care of a patient who is experiencing that. So we actually carry whole blood, plasma, and red blood cells. So we carry a bunch of different blood products to actually temporize people, keep them alive as best as we can. And so what I've noticed is a lot of people, when they're shooting each other, they don't shoot each other to kill. They just shoot each other to kind of wound. So it'll usually be like the lower abdomen or somewhere in the leg. I have had a man who was shot in the junk by his girlfriend who found him cheating, and it was interesting.
Oh my goodness!
It actually happened.
Did you find both pieces? Were they able to sew them back on, or was he kind of?
I don't know what ended up happening to him. We can actually look it up. I gotta be careful though, broaching on patient health
Wow, that
information.
is
But
nuts.
yes, I've seen that.
Poor guy. I feel bad for him, but he did it to himself.
I wish I knew the whole story.
Man, and that lady, she is a gangster. She said,
I
"Pew,
wish
pew."
I knew the whole story. Like, was she already carrying the gun? Did she go find a gun? Like, this was something else.
She sounds like a lady that already had a gun.
She didn't care. She was done. She was sick of him.
Man, that's crazy. She's a riot in
What was
prison.
that lady
Everybody
who cut
respects
off
her.
that guy's?
Oh yeah, she cut it off. They threw it.
Lorena Bobbitt.
That's
Oh,
what.
my
Yeah. But they
goodness.
found his and they put it in a bag of frozen peas and they sewed him back on.
Are you serious?
I don't know if it
I'm
worked
gonna
the
have
same.
to fact check that.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. We don't need to fact check. We'll just go with my story.
That sounds good.
So, what are some scenarios, where you're putting people back together that are just the most icky? That I'm sure like blood doesn't bother you, all these stuff. But what are some of the things that you're just like still ugh?
Oh, the ick factor.
Yeah.
It's, for me is, God, man, people just get on the helicopter and the motion of the helicopter is pretty similar to being on a boat, right? We always tell that to people with flying, but people just will throw up on you and not have any regard, which I get it. You're not feeling good, but no, we're in such close quarters that you can end up with vomit on you easily. But in terms of interventions that we can do, that is the most scary and interesting thing that we can do is we can actually do a crike on people. So we can cut into their neck. If we cannot get a breathing tube down the regular way, which is called tracheal intubation. So if we cannot get it in through their mouth and down into their trachea, we actually can cut into their trachea. So you've probably seen it on shows where they're like, we're going to save this person, and they cut into the neck and like they jam a pen in and they put their finger in the hole. Well, we do that, but it doesn't really look like that.
Yeah, it's a lot more sterile.
It's complicated.
And is it true that some of those people, once you put that hole in their neck, like they have to have that hole open forever, or it can be sealed up and then you just breathe normally?
Yeah, no. So it can be sealed up. Yeah. So sometimes those patients might actually need to have that done. And then surgery would perform an actual, what's it called? Where they actually create a stoma. They create an actual tracheal hole for long-term usage. But then once they no longer need it, they sew it up and they heal without a problem.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you've been on the helicopter for 5 years, and you're loving it. But one day, out of the blue, you said, I want to drive this machine. I want to be the guy in charge. When I get stopped at the gas station, I want to tell people, I am the pilot. All right? Look at me. I'm the boss. So what caused that wild hair?
Yeah, so you are actually my flight instructor, so I don't know if that's giving away information, but yeah, so I love helicopters, and I actually did a discovery flight in a helicopter. I'm not sure if you knew this.
No, what type was it? R-22?
It was a 44.
Ooh, fancy.
It was fancy, and I was like, this is the most fun thing I've ever done in my life.
An R-44 is essentially a real helicopter. It has about 4 seats, and it has a bigger engine. The R-22 is just a trainer, and they call it the lawnmower that flies around.
Yeah, I can believe it.
I did an intro flight in R-22 as well. That's what got me into aviation. So we both got our first intro flight in helicopters, and we both quickly realized, holy shit, helicopters are expensive as hell. I'll never be able to afford this, so let me go do airplanes.
Yeah.
And maybe transition somewhere down the line in the future.
Yeah, so exactly the same. That discovery flight was probably the best flight of my life, which I'm sure you hate hearing that.
I couldn't agree more. Helicopters are so cool.
I'm into my private license. Yeah, so I went and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then I went and got a quote on financing, and it was astronomical. Like, you could not believe it.
Back in my day, because I'm so old, as old as the hills, it was $30,000 in a helicopter to get my first license, compared to if you did it in an airplane, it would only be $10,000.
Yeah. No,
so
this
huge
is
cost difference.
Higher now.
Yeah.
Well, where I checked it out at, I got a quote and I had perfect credit. And just guess how much it was going to be to get all the way through commercial.
$140,000.
That's exactly the number.
Hey, I should go on Price is Right.
Wow. Yeah, with like an 18% interest rate. So that just went out the window. And I was like, I'm going to never think about flying a helicopter again.
Yeah, I had a similar start. You know, I was living in Montana, and I saw these guys standing on the side of a highway as I was going into a mountain valley, and I'm like, what the hell? And they even had little cones around them. And I'm like, what the hell are these weirdos doing? And they got the safety vests on, and I'm going like 70 miles an hour down the highway, and they're just in the left lane. All of a sudden, I see this helicopter fly over with this 200-foot long rope on it, and it starts hovering. And this guy grabs the rope and connects it to his vest, and he gets lifted off the ground, and he's just dangling 200 feet from a helicopter, and this thing just is flying through the mountain valley. And I'm slowing down. I'm looking up. I almost probably ran off the road. I'm looking at this helicopter up in the sky with this guy dangling from it. I'm like, that is the coolest thing in the world. What do they do? Well, it turns out they're making power lines. So those guys, they dangle, and then they can go like drop them in places. And he was just coming and picking up like 5 or 6 of these dudes. And I thought, I mean, being the guy dangling from the helicopter got to be the coolest ride of your life. But I also was like, I want to go be a helicopter pilot. So did all that to now be your flight instructor in airplane, because helicopter is a big dream, and it's really, really, really difficult to make it in that industry. Very small and super expensive.
Well, you'd be surprised. So our pilots in air medical actually don't make that good of money. So not saying money's everything, but fixed wing is actually where the money's at. Our guys deserve to be paid so much more than they are. They're around 100, one team.
And it's such a dangerous job. I mean, oh my gosh, you're literally flying into the craziest scenarios, and you feel like you have to go because you're like, I have to go save this guy. But in, fixed wing world airplane stuff, most of the time in those conditions, we would say, hell no, we're not going to go. But these helicopter pilots, they're like, this is just another day at the job, baby.
Well, our safety minimums are still really high, and we have really good safety criteria. We actually have oversight, a whole center that not only do we say yes, the pilot says yes to a flight, but a whole other center is looking at all of the conditions of the flight that was just paged to us, and they can actually turn down a flight. Even if we said yay, they can say no.
Oh, that's really cool. So in the charter world, we call that our dispatcher, and so it's a similar thing in the industry. Very cool.
Yeah. I've actually had them turn down a flight that we all said yes to, but they said no to because there was pollen obscuring the sensor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the pollen out here in the south, it is pretty crazy that time of year. It's you fly through yellow clouds. It's nutty. All right. So you had a love for helicopters, realized it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And now we jumped into airplanes. And tell me, what was your first few flight lessons like in an airplane?
Yeah, so I realized that getting into aviation, you have to be outgoing and network. So one of the places we land at is a local airport, and to get fuel. And we landed there one day. We were getting fuel, and I was talking to somebody there who gives flight lessons, and I realized that actually maybe becoming a pilot wasn't unobtainable, because it really felt like helicopters was the most unobtainable thing ever. And I was like, you know what? Flying planes is still pretty darn cool because you can do so much. And I did a flight. I did like a discovery flight in the 172, and I loved it. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll just forget about that helicopter. And I realized it was a lot more affordable doing it this way at a local airport than at an actual flight school, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
Part 61 versus 141.
That's right.
61's the way to go.
It's, I just tell them it's like going to Staples, any kind of big box store, and you got guys in the uniform, and they're like, hello, we're here to do your flight training today. Here's lesson 1, and here's lesson 1 part A, lesson 1 part 1B. Versus part 61, you go to some rickety hangar in the country and you find this guy from like the Vietnam era, and he's old, and he's like, hey, darling, I'll teach you how to fly this airplane contraption. And you're like, oh my God, is this guy going to kill me? No way. That is the best type of flight instructor to have. These old heads that have decades and thousands of hours of experience, they will teach you so much more than someplace at just a big box store, where most of the time your instructor is a newly minted instructor who only has a few hundred hours and hasn't had all this life experience. So you're out here, we're in the rural country, and you're learning how to fly airplanes. How's it been so far? What's been the good and what's been the bad?
Well, I gotta say, it's been amazing. As you know, getting close to taking that tech ride. The only bad thing about it, doing part 61, is maintenance. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
And availability of planes.
And it's really beating her up. And we've had long conversations about, don't worry, just push through. She's been worried because it's been taking her a long time. It took me a year and a half. Our last podcast guest, our flight attendant, it took her a year and a half. I just spoke to a fellow flight instructor friend of mine. It took him over a year and a half.
What?
He is a fireman and also was a single dad, now remarried. So as Sasha has mentioned, she is a single mom. So we tend to only be able to fly between the hours of like 11 and 2 or 11 and 3 in the afternoon. Now, for those of you that don't know, the middle of the day, the hottest part is when it's the most bumpy. And the winds are never ideal for learning how to land an airplane. I equate it to when you're learning to drive stick shift. At first we're just going to put you through the neighborhood on some nice flat roads. And when you can finally be at a red light on a big slope and learn how to put it into first gear and not stall because the guy right behind you is on his horn and his bumper is right on your ass. All right. And you can get through that intersection. That's what it feels like to learn to fly a plane. When you can put all the things together. So We were struggling for a little bit, and finally, Sasha revamped her life and made a bunch of changes to just really make this flying adventure a reality, and figured out a way to have evenings free and have some childcare. And we finally got to go fly when it was winds calm. And I'll never forget, she looked at me after doing like 3 great landings with this giant smile. She goes, "It is way easier when the winds are calm." And I said,
Actually,
I
no,
know.
I think I said, maybe I'm not that bad.
That's exactly what you said. And I said, yes, this is what we've been pushing for forever. Now, fast forward, Sasha has flown solo. Mm-hmm. She's done a handful of landings all by herself. So kudos to you. And we have been doing our navigation, where we fly far distances to other airports and learn how to talk to air traffic control and set up to land in different places that we've never been to. And we were making great progress. Our trajectory was a rocket ship to the moon, and then the airplane engine needed to be repaired. So we were on like a 6-month hiatus, but we now have some new availability, and we're about to get back into the airplane.
Are we getting back in the 172 or 152?
We're downsizing to a smaller plane, which is good because it costs less money. But how has this roller coaster been? Like, I know emotionally sometimes it feels like you're never going to make it. So tell me all about that.
Yeah. Well, so part of it was financial component. So to make it actually happen, I started a cleaning business on the side to pay for lessons, and it was going really well. And I've paid for almost all of my private from my cleaning business. And then I realized that probably wasn't sustainable because it's extremely hard work cleaning people's houses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
And it was difficult too, because as any entrepreneur, you have to dedicate a lot of time to your business. And so at some point it was like business was taking over availability for you to go flying, which was super hard, to make that decision of, well, which one do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did eventually decide to just go ahead, and I got myself in a good financial spot and take out a small private loan to cover the cost of the Part 61 flying. That way I can actually keep a steady pace going once this 172 comes back, and get through hopefully instrument and commercial. And I would love to be an instructor because that's my end goal, to do that for a while. And I just realized that this is all more obtainable than I thought. And I think this should be more of a career option for people. I never knew about flying. I never knew this was even a possibility, especially as a female. I don't know. I just wish there was more out there about how to actually get into it, because it's not like a thing you can ever think of like, I can get into this, especially if you don't have a family member in aviation.
Very true. And I just want to go back for 1 second and talk about the loan, because I know there's a lot of financially literate people out there that are just screaming in their car right now as they listen, going, why? No, don't take out the loan. Listen, you go to any of these big box store airplane flight schools, they're going to get you to sign on to a $100,000 loan with interest. Easily. And you're going to think, oh, it's so wonderful because I can get through all my ratings, all my licenses, then I'm going to go out, I'm going to make the big bucks. Not the case. You're going to have a bunch of debt. So Sasha did not take this decision lightly. This was almost a year in, and I think she made a very smart decision. It was not the typical type of loan that a lot of these people are signed on to, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're established in the industry, but also knowing that I have to somehow pay $1,500 a month or my whole life is ruined, and they could repossess my car or anything like that, And in the beginning, these first pilot jobs, before you make it to the regionals or the airlines or, business jets, they don't pay a lot. And they're hard to come by. So
I don't actually know how people do it. So it's extensive. I mean, the way that these Part 141 schools work, which if you're in that point in your life where you can do full-time school like that, I would recommend it, because it's neat to be able to follow a curriculum like that, but you can still do that the 61 way. You can make it happen. The way that these loans work for the flight schools is kind of like a line of credit. And the interest rates are exorbitantly high. And then, of course, just the cost of running the business itself, all of that's kind of added into it. And it's just more per an hour. Instructors are more. All of it is just more expensive.
Oh, yeah. Everything's more expensive. They're going to add in their little, cushion on top. So gas might be $5 a gallon, but if you look at your invoice, you're actually getting charged $7 a gallon, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah. So I went into these big box schools. I shopped around because I was like, maybe that's the way to go. Because at the end of the day, I really want to be a safe pilot, proficient and safe. And I'll never forget, I went into one of the big name schools and I looked the guy in the face, the financial guy, and I was like, how did you do this? And he's like, I was like, did you take out this loan? And he's like, no. And I was like, so what did you do? And he's like, I took out a home equity line of credit. I was like, oh, okay. So you didn't even take this loan, which once again, I'm not saying not to do that. Maybe it works for you, but you have to realize the reality of this because some of them are like major mortgages. For me, I'm interested in being a flight instructor for a while. And then I would love just to transport organs, which is kind of an unusual thing. But since I've been working air medical, there's this really neat chartered plane near where I live that actually flies surgical teams. And they'll take the surgical teams out somewhere to harvest organs, and then they put this organ onto a perfusion machine where they're actually running blood through it. And it's called, like, they can be called heart in a box or lungs in a box, and the heart will be beating in a box. It's so hard to understand, but they're called transmedic devices if you want to look that up. And you can look into this box and the heart will actually be beating. So you can transport the organs from wherever across the country to wherever it needs to go for a lot longer than ever before. So, it just all depends on what you want to do. If you want to go to the airlines, then, go for one of those big schools. But if you're just trying to like slowly get into aviation as like maybe a second career, then I would look at doing it this way.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about organ transplant because I do know a friend who is doing that now. And it's crazy. It's a lot of nighttime flying, a lot of last minute because somebody might die in a car crash and they're an organ donor and they harvest. Have you talked to those pilots before?
No, I've never got to actually talk to one. I would love to. I know it's a lot of last minute stuff, but I think the importance of it is so amazing. It's so incredible to be a link in that chain of life saving. Mm-hmm. So I can't wait to like maybe eventually get there one day as somebody who's worked on people to actually be like a different link in the chain.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
What's some advice that you can give to anybody that wants to become a air ambulance nurse, medevac, all that good stuff?
Yeah, if you want to get into air medical, so if you're a nurse, like I said, 3 to 5 years of either ER or ICU, or preferably both. And then as a paramedic, you've got to do at least 3 years of 911. And then you've got to go get your specialty cert. So if you're a paramedic, then you need to go get your flight paramedic certification. So kind of like being a pilot, you have to obtain all these certifications and ratings and kind of the same thing. And then for nursing, you got to go get your CFRN. So certified flight nurse. And that is like the most top certification you can get. It looks really good if you come into this job with that already done. Kind of like you telling me I need to already get my written exam done for my private pilot, which I finally did. If you can just get those things done, it looks really good to knock out. And then network, go to conferences. There's a really big air medical conference called ECHO that you can attend and network. And then there's something called Future Flight Crew, which connects you to having like a mentor to be able to get into air medical. And you have to like be accepted to it. So write good essays, and then you can get connected to an actual flight nurse or flight medic to mentor you along the way to get into it.
I think that's excellent advice.
Yes. That's inspirational. And the dogs agree.
I think the dogs have said it best. We're here at the end, and we got it all. Thank you, Sasha.
Yeah.
We'll catch you on the next one.
later.
Clear to land. Wind 280 at 7 off.